My name is Kendall Harrison, and for as long as I can remember, my family called me useless. Not to my face, of course. That would have ruined their perfect image. But the message was always there in the raised eyebrows, the backhanded compliments, the way my name was always said with a sigh instead of pride. To them, I wasn't a daughter. I was a disappointment. And for years, I believed them. Until one day, I decided I wouldn't just survive their cruelty. I would take my revenge. And trust me when I say this. When it finally came, my revenge was sweeter than anything they could imagine. Growing up in the Harrison household was like living in a beautiful prison. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. We had the five-bedroom colonial in an exclusive neighborhood, the manicured lawn trimmed by gardeners every week, luxury cars in the driveway, polished to a shine. Family portraits hung in gold frames showing four smiling faces: my father Charles, my mother Eleanor, my younger sister Sophia, and me. But those smiles were lies. Inside those walls, warmth was as rare as honesty. My father, Charles Harrison, was a man who built his fortune through ruthless determination. He ran an investment firm that swallowed smaller businesses whole. He stood 6 feet tall, with salt and pepper hair perfectly styled every morning. He had a presence that demanded respect, or more accurately, fear. To him, life was simple. Appearance mattered more than substance. Success justified any means. And family? Family only existed to polish his reputation. From my earliest memories, I knew my worth to him was conditional. Conditional on how well I reflected on him. When I was 6 years old, he used to pinch my shoulder and bark. Stand straighter, Kendall. Speak clearly. You represent our name. I learned quickly that love wasn't free in the Harrison household. It had to be earned, and I was always falling short. My mother, Eleanor, was the perfect complement to him. She had been a beauty queen in her youth, and even decades later, she clung to that title. Her blonde hair never showed roots. Her body was maintained by strict diets and discreet procedures. Her smile? Polished and practiced like it belonged on a magazine cover. While my father controlled through cold authority, my mother manipulated with guilt. Her favorite line was, "Darling, is that what you're wearing?" I just worry what people might think. It was never about me. It was always about them. About appearances. And then there was Sophia, my younger sister by 3 years. She was the daughter they always wanted. Pretty, compliant, eager to please. When I rebelled, she obeyed. When I questioned, she smiled. When I turned down my father's dream Ivy League business program, Sophia gladly enrolled. To them, Sophia was a shining star, and I was the shadow they wished would disappear. My rebellion didn't come in loud explosions. It came in quiet defiance. Reading books they disapproved of. Befriending kids from families they considered beneath us. Wearing clothes that didn't match the designer labels my mother picked. Each small choice became a line in the sand. And with every choice, the gap between me and my family widened. By high school, the lines were clearly drawn. I joined the debate team instead of the debutante society. I chose psychology over business or law. And when I earned a scholarship to a state university, I turned down my father's Ivy League alma mater. That was the ultimate betrayal. "You're throwing away your future," my father said, his voice dangerously calm. My mother sipped her wine and added, "Darling, people will think we can't afford better for you." I overheard them arguing that night. My mother suggested cutting me off financially. My father disagreed. "We can't have people thinking we abandoned her," he said. "We'll minimize support. She'll come crawling back." They underestimated me. Instead of crawling back, I stood taller. I juggled 3 jobs: waitress, tutor, research assistant. I lived in a cramped apartment with 2 roommates. I ate ramen for weeks at a time, and I learned to survive without them. But survival came at a price. Every holiday I returned home, the comparisons grew sharper. At Thanksgiving, my mother would smile and say, Sophia made Dean's List again, just like her father. And Sophia would beam while my father nodded proudly. Then they'd turn to me and ask, So, Kendall, still wasting time in psychology? It didn't matter that I held a 3.9 GPA. It didn't matter that I published research papers. It didn't matter that I was accepted into a prestigious doctoral program. To them, it was all meaningless because it wasn't their path, because it wasn't their control. So when my parents announced they were throwing me a graduation party, I was suspicious. They hadn't visited me in 4 years. They'd skipped my ceremony. And now, suddenly, they wanted to celebrate me? My best friend Zoe didn't buy it either. She said, Kendall, your parents are textbook narcissists. If they're throwing you a party, it's not for you. It's for them. I laughed at the time, but her words stayed with me. And then, a week before graduation, I overheard something I wasn't supposed to. My mother had put me on hold during a phone call, forgetting the line was still open. Through the muffled voices, I heard her say, Not sure this approach is necessary. And my father replied, The Kendall problem has to be resolved before it affects Sophia's prospects. The Kendall problem. That's what I was to them. Not a daughter. Not a person. Just a problem. The day of my graduation came, and as expected, they didn't bother to show up. When my name was called, my family's seats were empty. But Zoe and my friends cheered so loudly it carried across the stage. For the first time, I felt loved. But when I drove home the next day, everything felt wrong. The house was filled with fresh flowers, staff rushing around, guests arriving in luxury cars. My mother greeted me with a fake smile and said, Darling, quickly change into your dress. People are waiting for you. I went upstairs and found it, a pale pink designer gown hanging in my closet. Feminine. Traditional. Nothing like me. Next to it, a blue version in Sophia's size. We were meant to match, like dolls in our mother's display. I ignored the pink dress and slipped into the navy one I had bought months earlier with my own money. A small rebellion. But rebellions had kept me alive this long. When I finally came downstairs, my father was waiting, with a champagne glass in his hand. He smiled at me, too wide, too rehearsed, and pressed the glass into mine. There's our graduate, he said loudly so all the guests could hear. Harvard's loss is State University's gain. The crowd laughed politely. I raised the glass, about to take a sip, when I saw it. Just a faint dusting of white powder swirling at the bottom. And in that instant, my blood ran cold. It wasn't a party. It was a performance. A stage to get rid of me, discreetly. I didn't drink it. Instead, I smiled. I clinked glasses with nearby guests. And I started planning my revenge. See, my parents thought they were clever. They thought I was still the scared little girl who could be controlled. But they had no idea who I had become. My degree in psychology gave me more than knowledge. It gave me insight. I understood narcissists. I knew their patterns, their weaknesses, the lies they lived in. And I was ready to use all of it against them. That night, while guests mingled, I pretended to blend in. But secretly, I recorded conversations. I watched carefully. I saw my father whisper to his business partner, The Kendall situation will be resolved tonight. I saw my mother introduce me to potential suitors trying to sell me off like a pawn. And I saw Sophia, my perfect sister, watching silently from the sidelines, pretending not to notice. By the end of the night, I had hours of evidence. Whispers of poisoning, manipulation, enough to paint a picture of who they really were. Over the next few weeks, I built my case. Zoe helped me compile recordings, notes, photographs. We worked late into the night, piecing everything together. And when the time was right, I went to the authorities. The fallout was explosive. My father's business partners fled, horrified by what they'd learned. My mother's carefully constructed social circle turned its back on her. And Sophia? For once, she wasn't the golden child. She was just another Harrison, tainted by the truth. Their reputation crumbled. Their empire cracked. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being called useless. They were. My revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was precise, calculated, and devastating. Because the sweetest revenge isn't screaming at the people who hurt you. It's proving, beyond any doubt, that you never needed them in the first place. They thought I was weak. They thought I was nothing. But in the end, I won. I walked away with my freedom, my future, and my dignity. And they were left with nothing but the ruins of their own cruelty. So if you've ever been underestimated, if anyone has ever told you that you are worthless or useless or nothing, remember this. Your success is the greatest revenge.